Podcast Answer Man, episode number 225.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this is the podcast about podcasting, helping you take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster, if you've been podcasting for many years, or if you haven't quite yet launched that first episode. There's something we can all do to take our show to the next level. That's right, my friends. That is what we are here to do. And today, I have plenty of your audio feedback, and I really appreciate all the questions you guys submit each and every week. And hopefully, I've got enough content probably for the next several weeks, but keep sending it in. And just know that I don't always answer questions in the order they come in. I answer questions in the order of what I think my audience needs to hear at that given point in time. So it could be possible that, I've got 60 questions in the queue and you ask a question this week, and perhaps I'll answer your question this week just because I think it's a perfect fit for what I want to talk about or what I want to bring to the table this week. So please do submit your questions. 859-795-4067 is the number. And of course, I am not going to be answering any questions this week, but instead I'm going to be talking a lot about a lot of different things that are happening. I have a 34-minute interview with Ian Westerman from Essential Tennis that I'm going to play today. Just a major success story when it comes to what podcasting, starting out podcasting as a hobby, how it can turn into a full-time business. You guys have heard me do it. And I know many of you are intrigued by that, and it's an inspirational story. And I just want to let you know I'm not alone. Just really excited about what one of my clients that I worked with last year, what he's been able to accomplish in a really awesome period of time. So we're going to talk about that today. But before I do, I want to first read to you something that came in from one of my friends, Rob. He wrote this in an email, and I don't usually read emails for Podcast Answer Man, but I'm going to do it anyway because this one's the title of the email was something along the lines of an unusual benefit of podcasting. All right, so I'll see if I can read this without it sounding horrible. He wrote, Cliff, I wanted to jot you a note and let you know about an unusual benefit that podcasting has brought me. This won't apply to everybody, but it was truly a godsend to me. My wife, my 1-year-old son, and I are serving as missionaries in a South Asian country that does not give visas to missionaries. There are several options available. You can do study visas, research visas, etc. Other missionaries have figured out ways to stay in the country to do the work that God has called them to do, and we're more than happy to help us get started along the same lines. Unfortunately, I began to realize the drain of the requirements of these alternative visas. I was spending greater than 20 hours a week just to maintain the visa and stay in the country. That didn't even include my language tutoring or the work that I came to do. There were also considerable financial obligations. I began exploring other visa options and discovered the journalism visa. Skip back in time. At the beginning of 2009, literally on a whim, I began recording a podcast about firearms, reviews, news, competition, ammunition reloading, etc. Several of my friends and family were constantly calling me for advice, so I figured I would record a 15 to 20 minute show and answer questions, etc. I figured maybe my family would listen and keep me from having to repeat myself. After 3 shows, I had 50 subscribers, and it grew from there. By the end of 2010, I was interviewing all big names in the industry, and the shows were being downloaded over 4,000 times each week. This was the middle of a very busy traveling and speaking schedule to raise funds to move overseas, and my son was born in July. Many people questioned my timing, and I knew I would have to give it up to move overseas. People said, "What's the point?" Truthfully, I don't know. I just enjoyed doing the shows, meeting people, and the opportunities it afforded me. Monetarily, it was a net loss, but I was having a blast and I didn't care. In January of 2011, I gave up the show and moved overseas. When we moved here in January, it was the dry season and we only had power for 4 hours a day. It was a major culture shock and I immediately gave up all hope of continuing podcasting. About 6 months later, when I saw the journalism visa, podcasting popped back into my mind. When I visited the government offices to figure out the details, it turned out that the visa would cost 1/10 of what we were paying and would require a substantially less time commitment than my other options. Now, I just had to explain what podcasting was. It took quite a bit of explaining, but they eventually granted me and my family a 1-year visa based on my previous work, the greater than 100 episodes I recorded last year. This frees me up to study, teach, preach, and spend more time in ministry doing what I came here for. I am currently gearing up to start another podcast about knives since firearms are off limits over here. That will hopefully be the basis of my visa for next year. I still have to purchase a backup inverter/power system before the dry season rolls around again, but I'm sure that I'll figure out a way to make it happen. The Lord always provides. Seth Godin talks in Linchpin about leveraging every experience and opportunity you have to reach your fullest potential, create the most value. And that's how I see this. It's the perfect example of Romans 8:28. This example, my story, probably won't apply to anyone else in the entire universe, but I hope you will use it to remind your listeners that they can never be sure what opportunities their podcast will open up. I'm sure the Lord did, but I certainly never saw this coming. Take care and God bless, Rob Ridenau. So, Rob, thank you so much. The unintended benefit and just like who would have thought this would lead here? And that is so exciting. I mean, podcasting, did you hear this? This is something he wasn't making any money at, but he loved it. And he loved it so much and had so much passion for it that he created over 100 episodes. And people questioned, why even bother? Why are you doing this? And everything. And then here it is. It's basically had this, this effect on this portion and this part of his life, something he would have never intended, and it's granted him something amazing. So, my friends, I cannot stress enough. If you haven't yet started your podcast, what are you waiting for? Seriously, what are you waiting for? You never know where podcasting might lead you. And then, of course, we're going to share an inspiring story that is not too far unlike my own with Ian Westerman, and I think that you're going to enjoy the interview that I did with him. We'll get to that in just a moment. But the next thing is, of course, I just want to say that recently I had some exchanges, if you will, with a few folks online. And, I was recently invited to participate in an online panel discussion on another podcast, and you just, people hearing the story of just some different things that I'm doing. And it's like, yeah, you're lucky because nobody really makes money from podcasting. And I just keep hearing this phrase, nobody does this, nobody can do this. It's impossible to make money. Nobody can really do that. And so, I got to think, and of course, then all of a sudden I was in an online forum discussion and the same kind of feeling kind of came out. Nobody makes money from podcasting. It's impossible. Cliff, you say that you're making a living from podcasting, but how much of that really comes directly from podcasting? Most of your income comes in from consulting, doesn't it? Well, my friends, I usually would just have this conversation one-off and it'd be a different conversation each time, or I'd be in a forum and I would actually kind of defend the fact that, if you have a calling and a purpose, and it's your mission, and you never know. Nothing's impossible, and you'd be surprised at what you can do if it depends. I'm not saying everybody should go quit their job and podcast for a living. Certainly not. But to tell somebody something's impossible, I just really wish people would stop saying it. All right, it's just a silly thing to say to somebody. You never know who. You never know. You might be keeping somebody from reaching what's necessary to gain them their next step towards obtaining the right visa for their family to be able to do the ministry that they feel led and called to do. So I mean, you just don't want to water down somebody else's passion just because maybe it's because you don't have passion of your own. I don't know why you would keep poo-pooing other people's ideas or thoughts or whatever the case may be, but stop saying it's impossible. You can say that not many people do it. You can say that it's very difficult, and I know a lot of people actually do say that, and they're not actually saying it's impossible. But when I often hear the word impossible, it's nobody can do it. Nobody makes money from podcasting, and it's impossible to generate income from podcasting. Those are two phrases I have heard, and I've heard them way too frequently. And so, my friends, one of the things I wanted to do with this episode is saying, if you're not subscribed to my blog, I really encourage you to go to podcastanswerman.com/income. podcastanswerman.com/income. All right. I spent about 3 to 4 hours creating the blog post that you will read there if you go there to do it. Now, it won't take you 3 to 4 hours to read it, but it took me 3 to 4 hours to put my thought together and to share it in such a way that I feel like represents what I wanted it to share. And my friends, I'm going to tell you, you read that post, and the next time you hear somebody say nobody makes money directly from podcasting, or it's impossible to generate income from podcasting, then I just encourage you to remember the word income and then just put that at the end of podcastanswerman.com and just send them over a link to podcastanswerman.com/income. All right. So next up, the thing I wanted to bring up was something that I have never done before. And I'll be honest with you, it just shocks me that I've never had to do it. But it's called an iTunes redirect. In all my years of podcasting consulting, a majority of the people come to me before they set up their podcast, and we avoid the need of actually having to go and correct something, because usually they've if they want to change from one service, maybe from Blogger over to WordPress or something like that, they've already got FeedBurner, and so it's real simple to go in and change one little setting, and you don't have to worry about notifying any of your subscribers of anything. It's all just done in the background, and it's so easy, and that's why I love helping people when they're just starting out. But occasionally I get a client who will go in and start their podcast on their own, and they'll come to me, and after a couple of weeks, they say, you know what, I really am serious about this. I never thought I would be, and I want to switch everything over here. And I gave them my Podbean RSS feed, or I gave them this RSS feed, and it's something that they have no control over. And sometimes when they have no control over, there's nothing I can do to help them do the iTunes redirect. And so that's when I forward them on to the podcast that's titled, let me just do hostage. So how to change your, nope, that's not it. It is episode 200. How easy is that to remember? So episode 200 is what to do when your RSS feed is held hostage. Great episode of Podcast Answer Man. I encourage you to check it out. Matter of fact, I'm typing this in. Let's see here, when your RSS feed is held hostage. And I'm going to just put a link to that post right there in the show notes, and that way there'll be a link to it here for 225. All right. However, there are times when you don't have it. Now, what happens is, for most cases, that's been the case. Somebody else has to do the iTunes redirect, and I just tell them how to do it, and by golly, it gets done, and it's a no-brainer. So I've never personally had to do this myself, but I'm here to tell you about another blog post. I did 2 blog posts between the last episode and this one. And this one is actually called podcastanswerman.com/iTunes redirect. All right, iTunes redirect. And I give you an example of a client who needed to do some stuff, and by golly, we we actually got this thing updated, and I just realized that after I'm done recording here, I need to update some links and stuff like that, because we didn't use chadbudlong.com. We instead used something like fhspies.com. So anyway, but the thing is, though, is that I actually learned and taught myself how to do the iTunes redirect, and it was so simple. I never thought it would be so simple. The only thing is the problem with this one is that iTunes also recommends doing I think a 301 redirect on the actual feed address itself, but the client would not have access to do that, and so some other things they're changing around there. But anyway, if you're interested in seeing what an iTunes redirect looks like and stuff like that, I played around with it quite a bit. Did a 27-minute video of me doing some, showing off how that works and my testing around and playing with it. So there you go. That's over at podcastanswerman.com/iTunes redirect. Next up is I am working with a friend, and I'm going to leave him nameless right now. But this, I just want to share with you some, some things. I oftentimes have friends of mine who come to me with some amazing offers of help, and they really want to help me take my podcast website to the next level. These people who are experts in SEO, and they really know their stuff, and they're willing to help me in ways because of all the amount of help that I've provided through Podcast Answer Man and stuff like that. And matter of fact, there's this one gentleman that helped me a couple of weeks ago, and he did some amazing pointers and gave me this to-do list of all these different things that I could change around and make my site so much more productive for my goals of selling products and stuff like that, and just make sure that it's doing the things I wanted to do. What are the most important things that I want to promote, and are those things being promoted properly on my site, and are they getting the attention that I desire? And so, I had this one person, his name is Etzel, and he does this, I guess, for a living, and he gave me this very long list of things, and he was very kind, and I wrote those things, and to be honest with you, I just never got around to them. It's been on my daily to-do list for the last, I don't know, ever since I talked to him, which was maybe 5 weeks ago. It's just not happening. It's just not getting done. Anyway, I had another guy who reached out to me, and I said, I really appreciate it, but honestly, I don't know that I have time, and I understand all these things you've written to me in this email. It's, I really appreciate it, but I already know a lot of these things because I have this to-do list. In fact, check this out. And I gave him my to-do list of things that I got from Etzel, and he's like, yeah, oh my gosh, you really do have a great list. That you should implement those things. And there's certainly a couple other things that you could do as well. And I said, yes, I know. And it just comes down to the time, and I just don't have it. And he goes, well, I'm actually getting ready. I want to launch and eventually start my own business in doing this. And the thing is that, I do this work over here full time, but I really want to launch into this. He goes, I don't want to pressure you or anything like that, but I would be willing to write you some sales copy, to write copy for you. I'd be willing to make some graphics for you. I'd be willing to do this. And he goes, listen, and I'm not kidding you when I say that for you, Cliff, I'd be willing to do this and not charge you anything and really help you out. And I want to do it as a way to repay you and thank you for this. And as soon as somebody said to me, and as soon as this person, and I'll just say his name is Daryl, and it's funny because I got another friend, Daryl, who is going into SEO work and stuff like that. But this friend of mine, his name is, and I'll say his name is Daryl Tott, T-O-T-T. He's from the UK, and I'll be talking more about Daryl in the future. But anyway, as soon as he told me about he would help me with some images and he would help me with sales copy, that's what holds me up. It's getting the right graphics and it's getting the right wording. And I'm horrible at that stuff, or I'm not horrible. You know what? I'm really great at it, but the problem is I just don't have the time to do it. And he offered to do it, and I'm like, are you serious? I mean, because and you won't be. And if I accept your offer and I don't like your images, and if I don't like your copy, are you going to be offended or hurt if I choose not to use any of it? And he said, absolutely not. Well, I took a risk and I said, you know what? I really don't have any time to work on any of this stuff right now. I just don't. But I'm willing to have you give me some suggestions and write me some copy and make me some images. He started shipping over some images he created in Photoshop. And folks, I just want you to go over to podcastanswerman.com and scroll down and start looking at my product images. Now, by the time you're listening to this, they might all be the new ones. But certainly by the time you're listening to this, WordPress for Podcasters, the Thesis theme tutorial, the Adobe Audition 101 tutorial, the GarageBand 101 tutorial, the Social Media 101, the podcasting equipment images, those are all brand new, done by my friend Daryl Tott, and oh my gosh, it's awesome. He and I have spent we spent an hour and a half on Skype last week. We spent an hour and a half on Skype this week. These are scheduled calls, obviously, really blocked out the time. But I'm willing to block out the time to meet with this guy because this guy Daryl is helping me with some phenomenal stuff, and he's doing all this work for me. Now, of course, there's a bunch of stuff still left to be done, and he's working on this copy, and his copy looks great. And the thing is, I'm going to rework a little bit of the copy to kind of fit my style, my own personal flair and stuff. But man, he sure is making it easy for me. And my site has undergone massive change. And so just look at my header, like the whole call me today. That's out of the sidebar and it's up in my header. My email address is no longer in the sidebar. It's actually in my header image. I mean, it just little tiny tweaks, little things here and there. Wow, it's really making a big difference. And I'm already seeing a response. I'm already seeing a big response when it comes to this stuff. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about Daryl Tott in the future. He's really working with me on a strategy right now. And I'll tell you what, Daryl is a lot like me, and he reminds me so much of me when I started podcasting. His passion and his drive to do what he's doing for me is the same passion, the same drive I had to do podcasting. And man, is he awesome at it. He is so awesome at it. And he's going to be my secret weapon, but he's only going to be my secret weapon for a little while. And in the next week or two, I think I'm going to introduce him to you guys through a free webinar that I'm going to have him do for SEO for podcasters, and I really want to introduce him to you guys because he's helped me out so much. To have him do it for me is just a dream come true, and so it's awesome. And so anyway, more on that coming soon. I just want you to check it out. Go over to podcastanswerman.com and just keep reloading the page. Like go there every other day or so, or every 3 days, and just look at Podcast Answer Man and watch it transform. Click through the nav menu buttons. Keep a good eye out on the About page, the podcast equipment page, the products page, and eventually there'll be a consulting page or coaching page. Yeah, you just keep an eye on it. The contact page as well. Did I already say that? Probably already said it. Anyway, and certainly keep an eye on the sidebar. The sidebar is constantly being tweaked and stuff. And this guy he's good at his stuff. Anyway, and here's one of the things he mentioned. And this is a question. I hope you guys are still listening, even though I'm not doing Q&A this week. Here's one of the things he mentioned. There's an option for Aweber, for me to have the ability to send out a blog broadcast, which basically every time I post something new on Podcast Answer Man, it will immediately send you an email. All right. Now, this would not be if you sign up for I would not set it up to where if you sign up for my Podcast Answer Man mailing list, you automatically get the blog broadcast. I am not willing to even to entertain that thought, and he hasn't even suggested it. But there is an option for me to create a thing where you can sign up to receive, I can set up a new list and call it and set up this blog broadcast. And by golly, you will get this blog update every single time I post something new. And I'm not really all that keen on it in my mind. And I want to know, is it something you would be interested in? And I'll tell you what, if I get 15 people who say, yes, Cliff, I would love to go and click and subscribe to where I get an email every time you post something new on Podcast Answer Man. If you would like that, then here's what I want you to do. Go to podcastanswerman.com, look for episode number 25. Please don't email me, but go to podcastanswerman.com, look for episode number 225, and leave a comment and say, Cliff, I would so love the ability to subscribe to your email blog broadcast, so that every time you post something new on your site, whether it be a blog post, whether it be a podcast episode, that I get an email. I would love that. If 15 people or more post that as a comment on Podcast Answer Man 225, it will be done. All right? So there you go. We'll see. I'm being told that this is something that a lot of people find valuable. So I just can't imagine subscribing to it. But, the thing is we got to think outside of our own boxes, right? All right, real quickly, I think that's all I'm going to promote right now. So I want to go ahead and turn the rest of this episode over to the interview that I did with Ian Westerman, and I am going to basically just go ahead and play that for you now. All right, everybody, I have Ian Westerman from Essential Tennis, the audio podcast, the number one audio podcast on tennis. Ian, it is good to talk to you again, my friend.
Hey, Cliff, you too. Listen, it's a real pleasure to be speaking with you and to be on your show as well. Thank you so much for the invite. I appreciate it.
Well, I am excited to have you here because you are yet another success story. I know you listen to Podcast Answer Man, as do several other people, and what happens is they know that you push my buttons when I hear anybody out there saying that podcasting is dead and nobody can make money doing podcasting and all this other jazz. And whenever I find somebody who I've worked with in the past that basically got some advice and took it and ran with it and did some even more things on top of that and are succeeding, I get really excited. And the other day, you sent me a Facebook message, and it was just like, yes, I've got to get him on Podcast Answer Man. So let's back up to July 16th, 2010. Do you want to tell people why you initially reached out to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was a fan of your podcast. I was working in a job that I liked. I've pursued tennis my entire life. It's always been kind of the number one passion of mine in my life. I love it. I always wanted to be around it as a job. I went to college to be inside the tennis industry, and I graduated and started teaching full time at tennis clubs around the country, which was like my dream. But I got frustrated with it for a variety of reasons, and I started listening to podcasts originally because I had a 43-mile commute each way. I live in the DC area, and commute was between 45 minutes to an hour each way every day. And so I started listening to podcasts, and so I kind of had the idea, why can't I do this for tennis? And so very early on, your show is one of the ones I listened to for ideas to figure out how to make my show better and more successful. And I started the show in April of 2008. And I guess a little over 2 years later, I was still, I was happy with the progress. And yeah, at that time, I was the number one audio tennis podcast on the internet or on iTunes, whichever way. And that was great and all, and I was happy about that. But I just had this real itch to make it my career. I wanted to be my own boss. I've always been very entrepreneurial at heart, and I was tired of the commute. I was tired of having to spend time with people on the tennis court that didn't really care much about tennis. They were just there to get exercise or to socialize. And so kind of 2 years into having the website and putting all my extra time into it, I was frustrated, and I wasn't really making any money. And it kind of sucks to have it sound like it was all about the money, but I mean, to be able to quit my job, that's what I needed, right? I needed to replace my income somehow. So a long story short, sorry, this is longer than what you wanted, but I came to you. I called you because I was listening to your show. I was frustrated with where I was because I wasn't seeing the growth in income that I was looking for, and so I just really wanted some direction. I think my main question for you was basically like, Cliff, I mean, do you see this succeeding? Am I on the right track here? Am I wasting my time? And I was just kind of looking for a poke in the right direction, I guess, and for a little bit of encouragement.
And so you were one of those people that call me up, and I'll be honest with you, it's one of the most difficult calls that I get as a consultant and coach for podcasting. It's, hey Cliff, I want to talk to you because I need to figure out a way to make money doing this podcasting thing, and to be honest with you, I have a hard time just like let me find out a little bit more about you and stuff like this, because obviously there's a lot to do with motives and stuff like that, and this stuff doesn't happen overnight. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I learned about you before I agreed to take on the responsibility of being that encouragement and whether or not I felt like I could give you some good advice moving forward, I learned a little bit about you, and I learned that you had been doing it for 2 years. And I went and researched some of your stuff, and you had a YouTube channel as well, right?
Yeah, I did.
And so I watched a couple of your YouTube videos, and when I saw your YouTube videos, I'm like, heck yeah, I want to talk to this guy. I want to talk to this guy, and not only do I want to tell him that there's a potential, that I want to give him some ideas of things he can do moving forward. So you called me up, you needed some encouragement, and you wanted to just know, Cliff, do you think this has a chance? And what did I say? Because I don't recall, to be honest with you.
No problem. Well, I was kind of surprised by your answer, to be honest with you. I mean, on one hand, I hadn't replaced my income yet, or really hadn't even gotten close at that point. But on the other, I was confident with what I was putting out there. I felt like it was really good content, and I was at the time already getting a lot of positive feedback and lots of people writing me saying, Ian, thanks so much for doing this. This is great. It's really been a help to me. My tennis game's getting better, and like those kind of emails at first. Well, that was all the payment I needed. I mean, I was so pumped up about that early on, and that was its own reward, like by far. But then when I talked to you at that point, it was months and months and years into it. And so I was surprised. I was a little bit surprised, even though I knew that my content wasn't bad and it was probably on the right track. You were really positive about the direction I was heading in. And specifically, like by that point, I had built up a good sized email list. I had a good sized YouTube channel, subscribers already. And you were like, Ian, listen, if I remember correctly, I think at that point I had more email subscribers than you did at that point. And you're like, Ian, listen, I'm making a living off this. You're already doing better in this, and this area than I am. You need to stick with it, and you're already killing it. It's just a matter of time. I don't know if you literally said it's just a matter of time, because literally you don't want to make guarantees that I'm ever going to monetize the site. But you were very, very positive, and I honestly really came away with a lot more hope, and really energized me and kind of gave me a new boost of enthusiasm for it.
That's so exciting. I do remember our conversation, and I remember myself being energized by encouraging you, and just how much even it made me think, it's like, what, I need to take this advice that I'm giving Ian, because I know that, I've experienced some great success, but man, the things that I just shared with Ian for him to do, I need to be doing these things, because I can increase I can so increase what I'm doing if I would just do the things that I told Ian, and this is great. So basically, here on August 19th, 10 days ago, I get this Facebook message out of the blue that says, "Hey Cliff, haven't talked to you in a while. Just wanted to let you know that I quit my job a few months ago. Thanks for your help last year." So Ian, please tell us what happened between, July of 2010 and August of 2011 that led you to leave your career wherever you were before and doing what you're doing now full time.
A lot has happened since then, and things just really accelerated and took off. In August, I put out my first instructional course, August of 2010. So just about a month after you and I spoke, and it was something that had been in the works for a little while. Had no idea how successful it was going to be. And I had done small, little projects. I had done in-person clinics. I traveled around the country already, and those things brought in a little bit of revenue, but again, not nearly enough that I could quit my job. So my first online instructional course was about doubles strategy, and I released that in August. Was it August? Yeah, it was late August of 2010, and it did pretty well. It did well enough that it really woke me up and let me see the potential. I think that brought in, I made something like $8,000 on that course. And that was, up until that point, I mean, that was way more than I had made in either of the 2 previous years. And so I was really pumped up about that. And at that point, and that closed in September, that's when I really dug in, and I worked the hardest I've ever worked in my life from September of 2010 until February of 2011. And I reworked that course and included tons and tons of content. I think when I re-released it again in February as kind of the 2.0 version of the doubles course, it had like 15 hours of content, something like 7 or 8 hours of video, interviews with professional doubles players, and so I worked. I can't even tell you how hard I worked, Cliff. I must have been putting in 90, 100-hour weeks, with my hour commute, each way. I really wasn't taking any days off because I could kind of see the finish line at that point, and I knew that if I upgraded this course because I got great feedback the first time that I released it, and it really helped people. So I knew that if I could increase the size of it, increase the value of it, and then promote it better, it really had great potential. So I released it for the second time in February with several affiliate sellers as well. I had other websites promote for it, and it grossed just over $80,000 in February, which just blew me away. I could not even believe it. And I was kind of, I was talking to the person immediately above me where I worked, kind of letting him know, like, hey, man, I got this thing coming up in February, and it might do really well. If it does do well, I'm going to be leaving. This is what they knew where I was working. That's what I was working towards. And the course on the first day of the sale brought in like it was $36,000 on the first day of the sale. And so I walked into work that next day, just like in a daze. I couldn't even comprehend it. And all of a sudden, like I had the decision put to me, in theory, in the back of my mind, like this was how it was supposed to work, but I just couldn't believe it. And honestly, I thought about the decision all that week, whether or not to quit, because it was just such a huge departure from like reality for me. So obviously I ended up quitting, or I gave my notice that week in February. I quit in April of this year, and since then I've released another different course, and also released twice kind of a private coaching section of my website where I give people personalized feedback and private instruction. So I've got a bunch of different courses rolling now, and it's just been a huge transformation in my life. And I just can't, looking back, I just can't even believe how quickly it happened, and it's really incredible.
Well, for those who are listening, I want to encourage people to understand a couple things here. Number one, I understand for you, in your mind, because I've been there, how quickly it happened in your mind. But I want to encourage people who are hearing this to understand this did not happen quickly.
No, oh my gosh, no.
Because what we have to remember is the earlier part of this conversation, that you were into this for just over 2 years, and feeling like the most value you were getting out of it, which is great value, was this awesome feedback that you were getting that, wow, what you're doing here makes a difference for me. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate it. So for 2 years, more than 2 years, that's all you got.
Yes.
So
at 2.5 years in, I did that first launch, and again, it grossed like $8,000. So yeah, that was for 2.5 years work. And granted, all that came in like a week. So I was like, oh, sweet. I see the potential here now. But yeah, it was hard work. It was my free time. I had to stay self-motivated. I think that's where most people break down, is they don't see immediate results, and it can get frustrating after a while. And you really have to love, and this is something you talk about a lot, Cliff, and I think it's so important. You really have to love the topic that you are going after if you intend to put in the amount of hours necessary, or probably necessary, in order for it to really take off and be successful.
Exactly. The other thing I want to ask you here is obviously the $8,000, and then you got the $80,000. How important was your podcasting efforts leading up to those launches? I mean, would this have been possible? I mean, obviously you knew what you knew about tennis and stuff like that, but let's just remove the podcast from the equation. You had never produced a podcast, but you still created that first product, and then you created the second product that, generated $80,000 in income. How much of that would have been possible without the audio podcast?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard. I can't put a set percentage on it. I would say that the first release, the one I did in August, the $8,000 one, it definitely played a large role. That first release of my doubles product was only written. It was a written PDF ebook and audio. I did essentially a reading of the ebook, so that people had like an audiobook version of the ebook. And then I did, I think, 5 or 6 audio interviews with professional doubles players to get their feedback on strategy and tactics. So that was all, in terms of the content, that was all audio and written. And at that point in time, I had some, YouTube subscribers, and I had my email list, but the email list really was built probably 90% from my audio podcast. So I guess if I had to put a percentage to it, I'd say that the first release of that course, the audio podcast, probably directly related to probably like 80%, 90% of the success of that first release. The second release was a lot more video driven. It still had all of the audio content in there. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, the audio podcast was still important. I still use that as a way to let my audience know about different courses I have coming out, etc. And so it still played a big role, and it still plays a big role in building my email list, and just, having that connection with my audience back and forth, because it's a very personal medium, and I really enjoy it. But the second release, I would say it definitely played a smaller role, maybe, 30, 40%, I would say, of the second launch.
Now, the people you obviously mentioned that you had affiliate relationships and stuff like that. Those people that were out there selling your course, let's just say the top 10 people, were any of those people who originally found you through your podcast?
That's a good question too. I don't know that it was directly through the podcast, but I can't imagine ever having relationships with any of those other websites without the podcast, because the people that did promote for that second release of the doubles course, I mean, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and say it was just all podcast at that point, because that was like my, I don't want to say claim to fame. I'm not that full of myself to think that I was famous by any stretch of the imagination, but that was what had been successful. That was kind of my I guess calling card at that point was, hey, number one, tennis instruction podcast on the internet was like the big success on my site to that point. And so that's how I developed my relationships with other websites. I would reach out and contact them just to be in touch, or just to develop a relationship. That's how I did have sponsors on the audio podcast. And so I had a couple relationships there with, one was with a relatively big name online retailer for tennis equipment and gear. So yeah, I would say it definitely played a large role.
Awesome. Awesome. And so Okay, a couple technical questions here. You had this, the first launch was an ebook with an audio recording. I think pretty much anybody listening to this could figure out, that yes, there's pretty easy ways to create these, ebooks, and obviously how to record the audio and make it available. The course, the bigger course where you have about 15 hours worth of content, how are people accessing it once they've purchased it? So let's just say I just purchased your course and there's all this 15 hours worth of video and a bunch of other little bits and pieces here. How do I access the materials?
Yeah, good question. The very first one I did, that was just the audio and the video. That was just like a download. It wasn't huge amounts of data, so people just downloaded the files. The second course, which was much, much larger, as you said, and which included video, which, as you know, Cliff, gets really, really large really, really quickly.
Yep.
I had to find a different solution, and I ended up using Kajabi, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. It's a content delivery system. It's a course delivery and marketing system to be able to put together e-courses, and it kind of has everything built into it, kind of the membership portal, and you can organize courses with different modules, different kinds of content. You can customize it to automatically release different sections of the course at different periods of time. And it's really an easy way to put everything all in one package. And it integrates with e-commerce websites as well, so that you can integrate it right along with your shopping cart, etc.
Excellent. So the next question I have, if I wanted to sign up, back in February for that course, how much would I have paid as one of your clients?
Yeah, the second release of the doubles course was $197, I think I had a payment plan. I think it was like 3 payments of $70 something or something like that.
So basically, you just under $200, and you sold $80,000 worth of this product.
Yeah, just over 400 memberships. Yeah,
that's amazing. Now, how much of and that's all was, you did all the work up front, obviously working sometimes 80, 90s, 100 hours a week, including your daytime job and doing this at night, getting it all set up and prepared. But once you launched that thing, did you launch it in such a way that, it's pretty much automated at that point?
No.
Okay.
I probably did 90% of the work as far as creating the content up front. However, the way that I put it together was, and this is how I plan on always doing my courses, is having at least a little bit of an interactive element back and forth. When people go through the videos within that course or within any of the other courses that I do, they can leave comments and questions below each of the individual videos or audio, downloads or PDFs or whatever. And so I would go in a couple of times per day. I would see what new comments and questions were there, answer those. And I also did a series for each module. I think it was 4 or 5 modules, sections of the course. For each of those sections, I also invited people to send questions about the previous module. And then I did essentially a webinar. It was a screencast where I answered their questions that maybe were better to be answered with video. And I had a tennis court diagram, and so I could, kind of diagram points and show people different strategy, stuff. So there was ongoing maintenance, but the vast majority of the real work was definitely done beforehand.
Yeah, that sounds very similar to what I'm doing now with the Podcasting A to Z course, where, obviously there's hours and hours worth of video instructional tutorials, there's written documentation and all this other stuff, even some audio tutorials. And then, of course, what I do is I say, here's access to all the materials, and I give people, unlimited access to ask me questions for 4 weeks in a discussion forum, and I'll answer every question that's submitted. And then on Friday of each week or one day of each week, we'll have a conference call, which is done via GoToWebinar. I record that and release it afterwards to everybody. So it sounds very similar.
Yeah, sounds like it. And by the way, congrats on the success of that program. I know it's been a couple months now that you've been offering it, and it sounds like it's going great. So nice job with that.
Thank you very much. It's a blessing, and I never dreamt that it would be this successful and that I would love it as much as I do. And man, it's awesome. This is fun stuff, isn't it? Waking up each morning and doing what you love?
I still haven't quite adjusted. I don't think it kind of feels like I'm in like the Twilight Zone kind of. I mean, it's incredible, but it's for me such a big difference. Like the first couple of months, it was just weird. I mean, it was great, not having to wake up at 4:35 in the morning, to get up to do the commute, and then not having only an hour or two to see my wife and my kid. I've got a 1.5-year-old daughter. So I mean, to be home with them all day in itself was like amazing, and not have to deal with all the other stuff. But I was so used to my pace. I was so used to my schedule and kind of how hectic it was and the non-stopness of it, that it was, I kind of am still a little bit in adjustment period. And I think I realize a little bit more every day, every week, and every month how incredible of an opportunity this is that I have now. And I don't take it for granted. I really hope that I never do. It's such an incredible opportunity for me to be able to do this. And I'm sure that you feel the same way.
I absolutely do. And I still struggle from the adjustment of working extra hours all the time. And I still end up working, 10, 12 hours a day, a couple days a week. And it's hard because I love what I do. And you get that creative energy, and it's like it's hard to pull yourself away from it. But here's what I'm hearing from you is, and this goes back to a principle that I heard a long time ago. Find something that you love to do so much that you'd be willing to do it all day long for free, and then become so excellent at doing that one thing that people would be willing to pay you to do it. And
that's
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
That's kind of where I started. It was kind of ironic that's where I started. Like with my original career, was that I loved. I can't even tell you how much I loved tennis when I was a teenager, and then like coming up to college age. And so when I found out there was a college that had a 4-year program that would let me get into tennis and teach it for a living, I was like, that is unbelievable. I couldn't even believe it. And so when I graduated college and I got a job doing that, I was like living the dream. But then I quickly found out that not everybody shared my passion who belonged to a tennis club. And that shocked me. And it really just wore on me year after year after year. So it was kind of ironic that I thought I had that all worked out with my on-court teaching career. But I ended up having to get away from that in the end to find something that fit, I guess, my personality even better. But I totally agree with that quote. And I guess kind of an iteration of that is, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And you and I would both say that we have worked our butts off to get where we are now, but it's totally worth it because we have a passion for what we're doing. And so the time flies for me. I know it does for you when I'm quote unquote working on my site, and I love every part of my job now, and it was totally worth everything that I put into it early on.
Well, Ian, I'll tell you what, you have given me, I think, everything that I wanted my audience here at Podcast Answer Man to hear, to know that it's not just me out there that's finding success in this, that there are other people who have basically said, you know what, I love this topic so much, I'm going to create an audio podcast about it. And then, really the desire right up front isn't necessarily to make money with it. It's just that, I just love this. I can't not talk about it. And then all of a sudden you get into this thing, you start talking about it, and you develop yourself a brand, and you start to have a loyal following of people who know, like, and trust you. You're building an email list that people are giving you permission to communicate to them about this passion that you share with them. You're continually adding value, and eventually over time, there are opportunities that make themselves available to you that, should you choose to follow your heart and your passion, that if you desire it, you can find ways to make a living doing what you love most in this world. And I'm just so excited to hear your story, because it's just another example of what I consider to be success for somebody who started out as an audio podcaster, and look where it leads you.
Absolutely. And I hope that our conversation does give hope to people. It does encourage people, because tennis, right? Who would think that? It's kind of an obscure, if you're not like in the tennis yourself, it's one of those things that you kind of don't notice it. It kind of goes on in the background for most people. And so, I mean, I really believe that. Now, granted, there's kind of a little bit of inherent, I guess I got kind of lucky because tennis is one of those things where it's the value is in the information, right? I teach people, I give people the information that they need to get better at something that they enjoy, and they want more enjoyment from, that they want to be more successful at. But I really believe that that's most things. If you have a passion for something, then there's very likely somebody else who does as well. And I've heard you talk a lot on your show, Cliff, about a lot of times people don't feel like they're a quote unquote expert. It's not that hard to read a couple of books, take a couple of extra classes, and get a little bit of extra knowledge if you're not already an established expert. And I totally agree with you. Just start the audio podcast, establish your audience, all that stuff you talked about. I think just about any niche can do it if you have the drive to put in the hard work and put in the time.
I believe so too. Two things real quick. Number one, I encourage anybody to go and see if they can find episode 001 of Podcast Answer Man and hear my own admission of how much I felt like I had when I actually, I cannot tell you, I was trembling in my feet to call myself the Podcast Answer Man. I mean, like, who am I to call myself today? I'm the Podcast Answer Man. I'll tell you right now. I'm almost full of myself, but back then I wasn't even anyway. It's like, seriously, I'm the Podcast Answer. Where am I coming up with this stuff? And if you go back and listen, you'll know that I didn't have all the answers back then. And gosh, I always tell people, you find me today, listen to them most recent backwards. That way, because going through the thing, I learned things along the way, and I totally disagree with some things I said in the past. So you're absolutely right. You don't have to be a perfect expert. The second thing you said, and of course, here's the thing: can everybody listening to this go out and make a living doing audio podcasting? Audio podcasting about tennis and creating products and stuff like that. You know what? The answer is no. It's not anybody can do that. The thing is you have to have the passion, the drive, the talent, the determination and self-discipline, the faith and the support of your spouse, or if you're married, and all of these you have to have that passion. Now, here's the thing. If somebody came to me and they've been doing a podcast for 2.5 years on Frisbee golf, and
nice one, by the way. Good topic.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's Frisbee golf. And this person, if this person came to me and, I looked at their, youtube.com/Frisbee golf. And the next thing I know that this person has 200 videos on Frisbee golf, each of them with about, 800, downloads or views on their videos. And they're telling me they've been doing audio podcast about Frisbee golf for the last 18 months. And they've got, 900 subscribers. I would tell them the exact same thing that I told you. And that is, yes, there is a possibility. And these things that think people are impossible, or it's just crazy. And of course, it goes back to something that I shared earlier before I played this interview in our episode here, because I'm going to record an intro to this beforehand. But the question is, can people make money directly from podcasting? Not just indirectly. What you're doing is a lot of indirect, podcast. Of course, you've made some direct income. You say you've got a sponsorship or a couple of them.
Yep.
So the question is it possible to generate income directly from podcasting? And even you have done that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I encourage people to check out podcastanswerman.com/income to see my answer to people who tell me that it's impossible to make money from podcasting. And then number two, I'm going to now tell them to come to this episode and listen to Ian Westerman. And Ian, where can they find you online so that they can check out some of the stuff you're doing?
Well, essentialtennis.com would be the best place, I guess. But I mean, everywhere else on the internet, youtube.com/essentialtennis, YouTube. I just said YouTube. Facebook.com/essentialtennis. Same thing with Twitter. I try to be in as many places as possible. YouTube video is really where I'm focusing a lot of my efforts recently, but I have not missed a Monday of the audio show since I started it. I still love that show, and I love that medium, and I really enjoy doing it. It's a Q&A format people write in questions and I answer them. Very similar to you, Cliff. And at episode 185, I just released today, and I'm just loving that. So they can check out the podcast as well. Oh, yeah, and that's on iTunes. If you search for Tennis Podcast, it'll come up first.
Excellent. Well, Ian, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to come here onto the show and to help me to inspire other people to follow their passion and to keep podcasting and to never let anybody tell them that something is impossible.
Well, Cliff, listen, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show. And thank you so much for the encouragement that you gave me a year ago. It really meant a great deal to me, and it really helped me out a great deal. So thank you. I really appreciate it very much.
All right, everybody, there you go. That was my interview with Ian Westerman of EssentialTennis.com. I hope you are as inspired by his story as much as I am. I mean, it just is absolutely amazing what is possible. So there you go. 2 examples today. We got an email from Rob earlier, and we got this testimonial from Ian about the power of just starting a podcast about something you're so passionate about, and you never know where it's going to lead you. He never would have guessed back then that it was going to lead to this. So awesome. Oh my goodness. And folks, let me tell you, I see a lot of awesome things when it comes to people who are podcasting. I really do. It's why I love it so much. It's why I love consulting and coaching in this field. It is just absolutely my favorite thing to do. Hey folks, do you want to learn how to podcast? Do you want to actually get that first podcast launch? 2 things I want to tell you about. This Saturday, September 3rd, I'm doing a free webinar online. Anybody who is available at 12 noon to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday, September 3rd, if you're available to watch it live, it's free. Podcasting 101. I'm going to teach you what you need to launch a podcast. There'll be enough information provided to get a podcast up and running, guaranteed. Now, I'm going to tell you that's a free webinar. If you sign up, I am going to have 2 offers at the end. Number 1, there's going to be the ability to buy the recorded HD video of that webinar. So you can actually watch the video over and over again, follow it step by step, set up your own podcast that way. Absolutely, you'll have all the essential tools, all the essential tips to get a podcast launched up and running with this one 90-minute video. And you can buy it if you sign up for the webinar. You can buy it for $49. I don't know what the price will be when it is actually turned into a physical or a digital product for sale on my site yet. I'm still thinking about the pricing. I might actually keep it at $49. Might be higher. I don't know. But anyway, I really want to encourage you to check that out. The other offer, though, is anybody who signs up for my Podcasting A to Z course will get that for free. And of course, if you know anything about Podcasting A to Z, you not only will get that for included, but you will also get every single video training tutorial that I have and unlimited access to ask me questions for 4 weeks. And trust me, there's a ton of value in that. Hey, my friends, thank you for tuning in. Check it out. Just go to podcastanswerman.com. If you hear this in time, there will be a big banner on the right-hand corner at the very top of my sidebar. It says free webinar, learn to podcast. If you don't see that banner, you missed out because it's already past the time, but that's okay. You could email me, Cliff at podcastanswerman.com. Say, I want to get that. I want to be on the pre-order to buy that digital product. You can email me and I'll get you into that. Otherwise, and if you're interested in Podcasting A to Z, the 4-week training course, podcastingatoz.com. Hey, my friends, I'm out of here. I have a great show already planned for next week, Making Yourself Newsworthy. Check it out. God bless.